I know we've said the elephant in the room is heat, but the gorilla in the room is the capacity building that we have to start working on. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Joining me today is Tony Capito. He's a senior research chair here at Mohawk College. He's also on the board of the Green Building Council here in Canada. And I'm sure Tony will have some comments on some of the areas in terms of capacity building. Next slide there, Peter, please. So I'll give you a real brief overview of Mohawk College, but this is probably representative of all colleges in Canada. We have some variations in there, but here at Mohawk College, in the engineering school, we have your typical engineering programs from mechanical, electrical, computer, civil, bio. Many of our programs are 2- and 3-year diploma programs. We also have a degree program and working on future degree programs, including pathways. You heard about McMaster University here in Hamilton, so we have a Bachelor of Engineering program. We also have a very large skilled trades and apprenticeship program. Many of these areas in apprenticeship and skilled trades align with where we're going with renewable energies and building systems and the technology. We also have a applied research center where Tony works, and we have a lot of verticals in there. And we also, in the area of how do these applied research centers cut across the academic areas, which is kind of unique in that students that come to the college will get exposure into applied research in the areas like energy and IoT, digital hubs, and certainly in the area of climate change. When you meet a Mohawk College graduate over the next 2 to 3 years and beyond that, you'll know they went to Mohawk College just by the way they talk about the environment and about energy and about sustainability and decarbonization. They will be well prepared for those conversations and prepared for the future. We certainly have you've heard a lot about digital, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but certainly in the area of digital technology and some of the elements that we're looking at there and getting good, information on building systems, on energy systems, some of the things that you heard earlier to this presentation, vibration analysis and heat analysis and all this other stuff to give us really good intelligence so that, David talked earlier about, the loss of containment from heat energy. When you're located next to a steel mill or a large plant, there's a big issue with loss of containment of heat energy, and amongst other things. So important to know where that loss is and how do you manage it. I talked a little bit about partnerships with McMaster, but there's also partnerships and integration with many colleges and universities across Canada. We all do a little bit of it. Our Center for Climate Change, which is unique, and where we focus in on renewable energies, decarbonizations, many technologies that you've heard today, and others. Technology, I don't think, is the issue. It's more around change management and building capacity for the future. And then the area of sustainability, and what falls into sustainability, the social responsibility that we have to, ensure that we have in place today. There are a lot of people that have just parked their vehicles or, as Peter said before, probably turning down the thermostat to 15 or 16 degrees. The cost of running your home or your vehicle is really out of hand nowadays. And so if you're in a lower income situation, how do we actually address that issue? And the causal relationship between, new energy and old energy and the future has to be considered. But the thing I wanted to talk about most was the Canadian Colleges for a Really Resilient Recovery. And here, this was launched by the federal government in terms of the standing up the economy with an eye on decarbonization. And so there's an opportunity as the government this week and hopefully in the next few weeks starts to roll out funding for things like curriculum development and pilot projects for renewable ideas and energy ideas where we can pilot, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity to look at heat in some capacity. The next slide. So just in terms of Mohawk College, if you don't know this already, and this is something that Tony has led, we are definitely a leader in the area of sustainable education. In every single program and academic area, there is either a course or a part of your program that deals with sustainability and decarbonization and many other things in there. Nowhere near to the level that I would like to see it. So we say 100%. I'd like to see, the content of that being well integrated, including the whole circular economy ideas. The largest zero carbon building, we have a 100,000 square foot building, was the first in Canada. I don't know whether it still holds that position, but it's geothermal, solar, and we're looking at taking the entire campus to a zero carbon status over the next few years and looking at all these technologies that you've heard this morning. The Center for Climate Change Management, is something that Mohawk College has led with other colleges across Canada in terms of the colleges for a resilient recovery. So there's 15 colleges, at least one in every province, some two, like Ontario, the larger provinces, where we're working together. And the government's issue is, how do we prepare the workforce? How are we going to have the skill sets ready to address some of this technology? And as you can imagine, you're not bumping into it every day you walk down the street, or you go into a home, or you go into a building. We're still in that transition. There's a lot of change management that has to take place, but we need to start now preparing the curriculum and the content in our labs and the workforce, educating companies that deal with this technology and how we actually work towards that technology, because it's very easy to put in a gas-fired something or a oil-fired something, and we really need to move forward. We see that a little bit with electric vehicles, but the number of electric vehicles are still relatively low, and so training up for the future is a bit of a challenge when the market isn't there yet, but it will come, and hopefully sooner rather than later. So we got a lot of work to prepare the workforce for that. Next slide there. And so if we think about all colleges working together across Canada, then we've got collective competence across the country, not just in one jurisdiction, but across the country. So we're capable of working with different industries and different businesses and different sectors. You may have more of one kind of energy than another, but we can work together to train Canadians and ensure that they're prepared. As I said earlier, the colleges have a good reputation, even for micro-credentials, taking people that are working in the industry now and how do they get trained up and supported to deal with some of the new technology. If you don't know how to use it, you're not going to recommend it. Colleges can certainly fast track a lot of the programming for the skills of the future. As I said, micro-credentials or mini certificate programs, all kinds of things. And that's happened through, as we get to going through the Industrial Revolution to 4.0 and 5.0 and beyond that, we've been able to respond very quickly with that. And we got an ear to government, and that's the unique thing about colleges, and making sure they consult with us all the time and getting prepared for this transition. And that's what we've been doing with the what we call C2R2s, the Canadian Colleges for a Resilient Recovery, and all the college presidents have been campaigning with the federal and provincial governments to ensure that their response to help prepare the workforce is in place. Next slide. And so, if you want more information about this is a very quick summary of, what we've done, but you can go to our website and you can hear a lot more. You may have some other questions, and maybe I'll ask Tony Capito if he has anything else to add to this.
Yeah, thanks, David. I certainly agree with many of the comments you've had, and I just want to let you know that in my current role, along with working with many of my colleagues at McMaster University, and I think my colleague Jim Cotton's here, who can add a tremendous amount of expertise to the plans that were discussed here. I think one of the things that we've been focusing on, and I'm starting to do right now, is working with elementary and secondary school students to teach them at a young age. If you go back to when I went to secondary school in particular, and then went on to university or college, we had many fellow students who went into trades and understood that better. It was a different mindset then, but I think we need to resurrect that back in our secondary school, so that when they're turning 18 or so and they're getting into a college program or university program, they have a fundamental understanding of this. I'm certain to say that you ask any high school student right now in Ontario, if you ask them to look at a utility bill, whether that's an electrical bill or a gas bill, they couldn't tell you a cubic meter from a kilowatt hour to anything else. They need to start understanding that at a very early stage. And I've been critical at the change in curriculum. It takes a long time to do that in Ontario. We need to accelerate that. So, looking at that piece, David did mention our city school program, which works in some of the more difficult areas in the city. But I was working particularly with them in a course that I taught this year on zero carbon and green buildings, and we got them to deal with experiential learning, bringing them out to some construction sites and walking through a passive house building and seeing how it's constructed and actually touching and feeling the insulation and all the details that were going into that is a critical piece. So we need more experiential teaching and learning. I think McMaster's doing quite a bit of that in their engineering school, which I'm part of, but we're doing that as well at Mohawk. So just we're trying to prepare the workforce of the future, and it's going to take a little bit more rigor and discipline from our instructors in the curriculum to get people involved at a younger age, earlier age, so that they're ready to take this on as they get into the workforce.